Thank you. Next question, Jennifer DiNicola. Stand up, Jennifer.
We've seen in Porter Ranch and in Flint, Michigan, we've seen, government malfeasance, both local, state, and federal government, where our government agencies are sitting idle while children are being poisoned. And we see that also going on in our community, here in our state. We don't see a lot of people championing children's rights right now. And, for example, their right to go to school, to a safe school. It is, parents, if we do not send our kids to school, we go to jail, for truancy. So shouldn't our government have the right, or be obligated in the same way to ensure that our schools are free from toxins, illegal toxins, make sure that they're healthy, protective of their health? And would you be willing to, in your first year in office, propose a bill in the state of California to get ahead of this problem and to set a bill that would require the testing and identification of PCBs in our schools, and then to find a way to make sure that they are removed in accordance with federal law, current federal law, the way it is right now?
Yes, I would. We need to be cleaning up environmental problems all over the area. It affects our children, it affects our elderly. In so many ways, all of us are affected, and we need to follow the precedents that we've gotten from Porter Ranch, from Santa Susana, to get thorough cleanups and to clean up the Department of Toxic Substances Control and make sure that they really represent us and fight for us.
And I think I mentioned before, one of the things I'm concerned about is the use of herbicides and pesticides in your schools. Children have to have a safe place to go to learn, and I like the idea of a bill, especially about PCBs, and we'll probably need to expand it to a lot of areas too, because of what we're seeing going on with the strawberry fields in Oxnard. But I also want to make a point about homeschooling too, is that too often parents are vilified for keeping their kids out of schools and schooling them at home. And Moore Park, I push to make sure that parents that are homeschooling are supported by the public school system, not vilified by them.
Yes, I would. I'm frankly a little surprised that that bill does not already exist, and I'd want to first investigate to see if it does exist. But the health and safety of our children has to be government's first priority. If we're not protecting the health and safety of the people, especially the children who are more vulnerable, then what are we doing? What is everybody doing? So I think that's super important, and it's as important as, or even more important than the quality of education, because you can't learn if you're getting sick from the chemicals that are surrounding you. It's shocking me, 30 years after most of these chemicals have been banned, that all of our schools haven't been tested and remediated. It's just very surprising to me.
So it's a no-brainer to be out there testing and inspecting this, right? I mean, we sometimes just don't want to know. And Prop 65, which we've had on the books for years, is one of the many laws out there to disclose those risks to people. And it's unfortunately not applying in some of these cases, right? And so I've worked for years to require this kind of community right to know, not just for PCBs, right? Not just for that, but for fracking chemicals, for pesticides. This is work I did in Congress. So it dates back a very, very long time, and it should have been done years ago. But if it's not done by then or pursued through the courts, I actually think there's a pathway through the existing code to require some of these disclosures, and I think we could be pursuing that before a bill is required, but if not, we should absolutely be exploring legislation.
Hold on, Mike. Okay, we got time for 3 more questions. One here, one there, and one there. Okay? Yes.
Thank you.
Stand up, please.
There's a lot of drilling for oil near urban areas in this district. And I would like your position on steam-injected extraction methods, fracking, and the consequential need for injection of, they call it scaling of the water injection wells that include hydrofluoric and hydrochloric acid, and the consequential problem that we have, which is the transport of those toxic chemicals by both truck and rail.
That's a big one. I got 1 minute on that?
You got 1 minute.
So I've spent the last 4 years in the Capitol actually working on reforming our entire oil and gas system for the state of California, and we've run into roadblock after roadblock. So everyone's probably going to sit here and agree with you and say, we need to be overhauling our state system, but who actually has the willpower and the know-how to get that done? So we have a bill that ran into a wall. It's called SB 248. It's currently stalled out in the Assembly because many Democrats, right, who during their elections would tell you, we're the green candidate, we're environmental, when they get up there and the rubber meets the road and the vote has to be taken, and you have an army, the Chamber of Commerce, and millions of dollars that are going to pile up against you to hit you for that, which, by the way, will happen to me in this race. Do you have the guts to stand up? So that's what makes this decision to run so hard, is they all know where I stand on these issues. It's a totally corrupt oversight system. Again, we found benzene in the water going into our almonds. That's unacceptable. They said acidizing isn't fracking, so why would you shut that then? That's pushing hydrofluoric acid into our water supply. So I'm going to stand so strong on that, and I stand by my record very, very proudly.
Just give to Ms. Resnick.
Sure.
We'll just go this way.
Just as was predicted, of course, we're all going to agree with you, and I do, but I think this brings us back to the whole need that's been discussed earlier today about reducing our dependence on fossil fuels. All of these extraction methods, all of them are terrible for the environment. And not only in this part of the district, but there are many such instances throughout Los Angeles and throughout the state, and all of our groundwater is ultimately connected. The aquifers, they provide, hopefully one day, water, clean water for all of us to use, especially in Southern California. So I would be very supportive of all of the legislation, and I would even be a leader on this legislation, especially that measures that reduce our dependence on fossil fuels.
Mr. Pollard?
Hey, I think we're all in violent agreement about getting off of fossil fuels, and I think we're all on the record as opposing fracking. But I do want to say that it's not just in urban areas that we have to worry about fossil fuel extraction. I've been fighting an expansion of a refinery up in San Luis Obispo where they want to add rail spurs so that they can bring oil trains all the way through this district, through the San Fernando Valley, through Ventura County, all the way up to San Luis Obispo, trains that have had horrible accidents in the past and exposed people, especially disadvantaged people that live along the tracks, are especially exposed to catastrophic accidents. So we need to address oil and gas as a whole, and as I said before, I'm all for transition to a hydrogen economy.
Mr. Matthews?
I was a member of Save Porter Ranch even before the gas leak started because the group was created to fight fracking that was going on in the adjacent property, and now it turns out that the gas company has also been doing fracking. I've been a leader on that fight. I pushed to get the LA City Council to pass a moratorium on fracking. They asked the city attorney to write up a law, and the city attorney refused because he said that SB 4 would preempt it and keep the city from being able to stop fracking in our neighborhood. I fought against the oil trains, wrote the resolution that was passed by the Los Angeles County Democratic Party, and that then convinced the city council to fight that, and we are very close to stopping those oil trains. We have so many of these things that we need to be stopping. I have worked with hydrofluoric acid. It's a really, really nasty chemical. I know this woman who got some on her hand, and you don't feel it when you get it on your hand. It soaks through your skin, gets to your bones, and dissolves your bones. And the only thing more painful is the sodium shots down deep into your bones in order to push the fluorine back out. Nasty, nasty stuff. We shouldn't have this in our environment.
All right, we're going to go to this gentleman back here, and then you, and then we'll wrap it up.
Trying to get that out of my head.
Sorry about that.
So, could you please tell us your positions on an independent Malibu school district and what you will do in that regard during the campaign and after you're elected?
Good. Richard, to start.
You guys, could you repeat the question because we weren't able to hear
Okay.
the gentleman back there? Thank you.
The question is, do we support an independent Malibu school district? That is a local thing that I think that Malibu has to decide for itself. If Malibu wants to have its own independent school district, I support that.
In my work for the School Boards Association, I've visited about 350 school districts all up and down the state, including one school districts. And some of them are the best performing in the nation. So I think there's some merit to having small school districts, and certainly if it's the will of the people of Malibu, I would support that.
I've heard that there's a lot of sentiment in Malibu of people who feel that too much of your tax dollars are going to support Santa Monica schools. So I am completely supportive of whatever the people of Malibu would want. Your quality of your kids' education is your destiny, and it's your choice. And if you feel that that would be a more productive and more effective way to educate your children, then I would be very supportive.
Thank you for the question, Craig, and for your leadership on the board. 1/7 of a voice for our kids is not enough. 1/7 of an education is not enough. Right? We need more than that. And this school, Malibu High, and all the elementary schools out here can be the gem of the state of California. But I will say, I'll stand behind this community, and we will make this an independent school district. But we all need to step up in this room, and the residents of Malibu need to step up and lead on this, right? To be willing to administer this district, to go do the PTA meetings, to raise the money, to go to those parent-teacher conferences, to serve on the board itself. So it's really going to be a test of our civic mindedness as a community, whether we're willing to govern this board. And they're going to doubt us out in Santa Monica that we can do that. So I think it's an incredibly important challenge that your school district representative has laid down, and I hope Malibu rises to the occasion.
Last question
Would each of the candidates just tell us 3 endorsements that were important to you, whether family, corporation, or environmental group, and your 3 largest monetary donors to your campaigns?
The question was the endorsements, 3 largest donors, and 3 most important endorsements. We'll start with Ms. Radley.
I have 24 donors that have maxed out to my campaign. That's $4,200, and I can't. So there's not 3 largest. Those are 23 or 24 max out donors to my campaign. My 3 endorsements that have been most significant to me were starting off with Zev Yaroslavsky and Sheila Kuehl, who endorsed me before I decided to run. They said they would endorse me, and they have. They're people I've worked with for the last 30 years, and their endorsement means a great deal to me. And Dianne Feinstein's endorsement a couple of weeks ago was an incredible gift to me, and a demonstration of the fact that she believes that I have the leadership to be able to make an important difference for the people of this district.
My most important endorsements are Jack O'Connell and Blaine Easton, who are the immediate 2 previous state superintendents of public instruction. I also enjoy the endorsement of Steve Bennett and John Zaragoza, who are Ventura County supervisors. And as far, I have far fewer max out donors, but there are about a half dozen max out donors that are all a matter of public record, and they're mostly family members and friends that have done that.
Mr. Matthews.
I'm endorsed by top world climate scientist Michael Mann. Just recently got endorsed by Naomi Klein. And I am endorsed by the leader of our Progressive Democrats of the San Fernando Valley and National PDA board member Russell Green. My 3 biggest contributors are an old friend from college who has built a massive solar system that he gave me a maximum contribution. One of the lawyers who is working for the Porter Ranch residents has given me a maximum contribution, and North Valley Democratic Club gave me a lot of money, and they are one of the 2 Democratic clubs that has already made an endorsement in this race, and both have endorsed me.
Mr. Stern.
Thanks.
So I'd say first and foremost, I'm proud to have the sitting Senator Fran Pavley's endorsement. And my former mentor, though, and the person who really got me into public service in the first place was Henry Waxman, and so the congressman's endorsed me as well. That's very important. But much more important than any politician is the tens of thousands of working people who are standing behind this campaign. So now I have the endorsement not only of the sheriffs of LA County, the Teamsters and the below-the-line workers in the entertainment unions, the hotel workers, the service employees, and all the janitors. So these are the people who can't afford those max checks. They're standing behind this campaign because they know that the max checks aren't what are important. It's them. It's them. So I have the max donors too, and we all have that because you need money to run for these offices. But I truly don't believe that's what you should judge this election on, so thank you.
Before we go to closing statements, I just want to remark that, Richard, if you have an endorser who's created a solar system, you're really reaching high. I want to get to know him. All right, I couldn't resist. We're gonna stop. We're gonna go closing statements. Come on, we're almost there. Each candidate gets 2 minutes. We're gonna start with Mr. Pollack.
Well, thank you all for coming out, and thank you for arranging this. I think this is very helpful for you to see us all side by side answering all your questions, and it's going to be a tough choice. You see there's very little sunlight between our answers here. I do want to point out, though, you now know where I stand on all the issues. You see that I'm a progressive Democrat, and you may wonder, how did I get elected 7 times in the most conservative corner of this district? And let me explain that. I have a business degree from Pepperdine University, just up the road here, and an MBA from the Anderson School at UCLA. And the reason that they like me over in Moore Park and Simi Valley and Thousand Oaks is because they know I have a business background. So they trust that even though I have progressive ideals, they trust me to balance budgets and to look at government expenditures as investments. So, I know that, with the way we spend money in government, it's not exactly the same as we do in investments, but still it helps to have that mindset and that perspective to consider things like, I consider what we spend on schools to be an investment in our children, not an expense that we try to minimize. And I look at trade-offs between things. For example, I believe that if we invest more in public schools, that we'll be spending less in incarceration down the road. I mean, it's no coincidence that most inmates in state prisons don't have a high school education. Hello, and you don't have to be a financial genius to figure that out. And I think there's too few people in the legislature that have that mindset and can look at those trade-offs and look at what's a wise investment of public funds. So again, I want to thank you all for coming out here, and you're going to be hearing a lot more from all of us in the next few months as the campaign heats up. But I invite you to give me a call, get involved. You can find out more about my campaign at pollockforsenate.com, and I'll be staying afterwards to talk to all of those that may have individual questions. So thank you.
Next will be Mr. Matthews.
Thank you very much. I'm a scientist and engineer, and I will be looking to see that we use that type of information so that we base policy on good, sound science. I've been active in politics my whole life, going back to marching for Cesar Chavez, boycotting grapes, to make sure that the farm workers would be able to form a union, and so many other things that I have done through my political career. You know what I will get done in Sacramento because it is what I have been doing within the Democratic Party to make the party more progressive, more responsive to us. Now, something that we have not talked about here today, unfortunately, has been jobs and the economy. And some things that we need to be doing in that area is we need to be increasing the minimum wage to $15 per hour and tying it to inflation so that we don't keep fighting this fight over and over again. And that will make money move faster through the economy so that it will help many, many people be able to do much better. We need to have debt-free education, and that may not be obvious as something that's an economic thing, but we have so many good students from our excellent educational institutions, including the one right down the street here, who graduate and they aren't able to afford the expensive cost of living in this area because of the huge amounts of debt that they have. They leave the area as a result, and that means that businesses leave our area. We've lost so many high-tech businesses because they don't feel that we have the workforce here anymore. We need debt-free education, and we need fair trade. We need to fight the TPP. Trade is very important to California. TPP will be disastrous to the internet, be disastrous to our high-tech companies here in California. We need to fight that to preserve the California economy. I'm Richard Matthews, voterichard.org. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you. Next is the president.
I just want to tell you a little story. 12 years ago, when I first started Jewish World Watch, the organization that I co-founded with Rabbi Schulweis, the refugees were coming into a refugee camp from Darfur into Chad, and the women were being raped when they went out of the camp looking for firewood that they needed to be able to cook their food. And from this city, right across the hill where I live, we came up with an idea of bringing solar cooking into the refugee camps. And we were able to get cardboard and foil brought into the camps, and we were able to reduce the incidence of rape for the women in those refugee camps by 86%, with over 200,000 women using solar cooking. That project was the largest solar cooking project in the world at its time. I brought a common sense, easy solution to a very complicated problem, and that's the kind of person I am. I'm a practical person. By training, I'm a social worker. I'm a mother. I have my degree in nonprofit management, and I'm a lawyer, and I've worked for 40 years doing all kinds of different things. The common thread is that I embrace a problem, I do not shy away from it, I roll up my sleeves, I work with other people, and I get stuff done. And I've always gotten stuff done. And that's, if you want to know more about me, we have our resume. I have my resume here. Go to my website, janice2016.com, and I would welcome the opportunity to get to know you better and to tell you more about me and what I've accomplished and what I can do as a leader, as a person with a lot of energy, passion, and skill. Thank you.
There's a lot more I would like to actually have talked about today in terms of our education system.
Okay, well, we'll stay for another two.
So let's do it. But you all know how to find me, and we'll spend time working on that. I want to go back to where we started, which is, you know what you're going to get with me, right? We're not starting from scratch. As your next senator, you know that I'm going to carry on this legacy of Senator Pavley. You know the work I've done in my life. I'm not trying to hide anything in my resume or talk about, make you promises. And everyone up here, like I said, can make a lot of wonderful assurances to you all. We can promise chocolate milk in the drinking fountains, right? That's the classic go-to, right? Everything is possible. Don't judge it based on what we're promising you. Judge it based on what we've done. Look at our resume. Study us. Look into our history. And I hope that when you do that, you'll know that my heart is true and that my competence, in that moment, that pressure moment, when you're sitting across the table and you're getting an onslaught from you from the other side, I've been there and I've made the right decision. So I'm so proud to stand before you today as a product of this community. I'm so proud to be a lifelong resident of the 27th District. And I hope you'll instill your confidence in me to carry on this incredible legacy we've built over the last decade to represent you up in Sacramento. So thank you all for engaging and keep digging. You know, it's on you. It's your responsibility to win this election. We can stand up here and talk all we want, but you're going to be the deciders. You're going to be the deciders. So thank you for coming out.
I just want to conclude this portion of the meeting by asking everyone to give these candidates a hearty hand. It is absolutely refreshing to see the civility and the comity, not comedy, but comity with which you conducted yourselves here, and I personally want to thank you as the moderator. The focus was on issues. The personal recriminations get left at the door. Hopefully there are none anyway, but they don't serve any purpose in a forum like this. And I think each of you acquitted yourselves admirably, and I want to thank you for that. And the only admonition I want to leave you with is please continue to keep the campaign on a higher plane. Thank you very much.